From our Toronto studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Aishah Ashraf. Our top story tonight, Palestinian journalist Muhammad Sabir Arab, who is from Gaza, has detailed horrific experiences of torture, abuse, and rape endured by detainees at the Israeli Detainee detention camp. Arab, a 42-year-old correspondent for Al Arabi TV, shared his account with his lawyer during a recent visit. Arrested in March from Al-Shifa hospital amid a large-scale Israeli assault, Arab described conditions in the camp as inhumane. Detainees, including himself, were kept blindfolded and handcuffed 24 hours a day. For 50 days, he had not changed his clothes and was only allowed to change his trousers before the lawyer's visit. Continuous torture, physical and sexual abuse, and severe humiliation have led to deaths among the detainees. Conversations are prohibited, and violations result in severe beatings. Some have had limbs amputated and bullets removed without anesthesia. Constantly surrounded by police dogs, detainees are allowed only a minute on the toilet, with punishments for exceeding this limit. Khalid Majni, the first lawyer granted access to the facility, has also revealed appalling conditions endured by over 1,000 Palestinian detainees in the prison. Earlier, a 3-month investigation by the New York Times revealed that detainees at the Detainee being subjected to systematic sexual abuse and torture. The Israeli military has announced plans to close Detainee amid mounting allegations, with detainees being transferred to other facilities. Calls for investigations into recent deaths and testimonies of torture continue to escalate, calling for international scrutiny. Israeli strikes have killed 35 Palestinians and injured 130 others in Gaza over the past 24 hours, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry. Wafa news agency reports that 2 women were killed and 12 others injured in an Israeli airstrike on a home in the Nuseirat refugee camp in central Gaza. Israeli tanks, supported by airstrikes and drones, penetrated deeper into western Rafah, resulting in the killing of 8 Palestinians. The incursion targeted residential areas, including the Al-Mawasi neighborhood, where displaced families sought shelter. Residents say the tanks moved into 5 neighborhoods after midnight. Israeli actions have led to mass exodus. The UN Refugee Agency, or UNRWA, estimates that just 65,000 people remain in Rafah, where more than 1 million Palestinians had been seeking shelter before Israeli advances. Amid these developments, Israeli military spokesman Daniel Hagari says Hamas is an ideology that cannot be eliminated. This contrasted with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's stance that Israel will continue its war until Hamas is defeated. U.S. officials estimate that 50 Israeli prisoners remain alive in Gaza. This figure suggests a higher death toll among prisoners than previously acknowledged. Hamas had taken about 250 prisoners on October 7, with 109 released in exchange deals and 7 rescued by Israeli forces. Since October 7, at least 37,431 Palestinians have been killed and 85,653 injured in Gaza. The International Court of Justice has accused Israel of genocide, ordering an immediate halt to operations in Rafah. A missile labeled Made in India was uncovered in the wreckage of a UN shelter in Gaza's Nuseirat refugee camp. The targeted shelter was housing numerous displaced families, including vulnerable groups like women and children, causing chaos and devastation. Rescue efforts continued overnight, with casualties yet to be fully accounted for, but early reports indicate significant loss of life and injuries. The revelation of the missile's origin has sparked international outrage and demands for a thorough investigation. Human rights groups and global bodies have denounced the incident as a severe breach of humanitarian law. While Indian officials have not yet responded, questions have been raised about their defense export policies and oversight of military hardware use abroad. 93 nations have reaffirmed their support for the International Criminal Court, or ICC, emphasizing its independence in pursuing legal actions. This follows recent threats aimed at ICC prosecutor Karim Khan, who will be seeking arrest warrants against Israeli leaders and Palestinian figures. The statement was issued by member states of the Rome Statute and urges global cooperation to uphold international law and combat impunity for serious crimes. Despite earlier engagements with the ICC, the U.S. and Israel continue to dispute its jurisdiction over their nationals. The U.S. House of Representatives aims to impose sanctions on the ICC and its officials, a response that critics say undermines international judicial norms. Senator Bernie Sanders is urging the U.S. to suspend military aid to Israel. Sanders emphasizes leveraging aid to demand an end to hostilities, ensure humanitarian aid flow to Gaza, halt killings of Palestinians in the West Bank, and initiate steps towards a two-state solution. His statement follows Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's claim of U.S. arms restrictions. Netanyahu, addressing concerns during Secretary of State Antony Blinken's recent visit, criticized delays in weapon deliveries. Sanders, criticizing Netanyahu's upcoming U.S. congressional address, vowed not to attend, labeling him a war criminal. International outcry persists over Israel's defiance of a UN ceasefire resolution, with Gaza suffering extensive damage and humanitarian crises. Louisiana has enacted legislation requiring the display of the biblical 10 Commandments in all public school classrooms. Governor Jeff Landry signed the Republican-backed law, emphasizing the commandment's foundational role in legal principles. The law mandates poster-sized displays in classrooms from kindergarten through university, citing historical and cultural significance. It aims to avoid legal challenges by funding the posters through donations rather than state funds, referencing a precedent set by a 2006 Supreme Court ruling. The legislation, supported by Louisiana's Republican supermajority, faces anticipated legal scrutiny over its constitutionality, with potential implications for other states pursuing similar measures. The legislation cleared the State House of Representatives May 28 in a 79-16 vote. It was approved in the state Senate in a lopsided 30-8 vote 2 weeks prior. Republicans hold a supermajority in the Louisiana legislature, allowing them to easily pass bills without support from across the aisle. Toxic chemicals released during fires following a Norfolk Southern train derailment in Ohio last February have spread over 540,000 square miles. A new study reveals that the toxic fumes may be impacting 16 states and possibly Canada. Published in Environmental Research Letters, the study highlights the unexpected scale of pollution from vinyl chloride fires, a known carcinogen. Lead author David Gay noted the chemical's unprecedented reach, surprising even experts. The researchers looked at inorganic compound samples in rain and snow at 260 sites. The highest level of chloride were found in northern Pennsylvania and near the Canada-New York border. Despite low absolute concentrations, levels were seen affecting regions as far as northern Maine and northern Pennsylvania. Norfolk Southern faces extensive legal repercussions, including nearly $1 billion in settlements for damages and environmental cleanup. Extreme heat claims 900 lives during Hajj in Saudi Arabia. Details coming right after this break. Stay tuned and we will be right back. Welcome back. More than 900 Hajj pilgrims have died from heat-related causes as temperatures in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, have soared to 125 degrees Fahrenheit. The heat has worsened Saudi Arabia's summer conditions and especially affected sick and elderly pilgrims, with Egyptians bearing a significant toll. One diplomat told news agency AFP that deaths among Egyptians had jumped to at least 600. Many families have turned to social media amid fears for missing loved ones, flooding platforms like Facebook with pictures of the missing and requests for information. About 1.8 million people from all over the world made the pilgrimage this year. Air pollution is now the second largest cause of death for children under 5 globally, according to a new report. Released by the Health Effects Institute, or HEI, and UNICEF, the State of Global Air report highlights nearly 2,000 deaths daily among young children due to toxic fumes. The report underscores that children in the global south are most vulnerable, facing a mortality risk 100 times higher than their peers in wealthier nations. In 2021, air pollution ranked just below malnutrition as a leading cause of death for young children, surpassing even poor sanitation and lack of clean water. Wealthy countries, including the U.S., are also affected by ozone pollution, which can be heightened by high temperatures. In 2021, nearly 50% of all ozone-related chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, deaths were in India. As many as 237,000 deaths were reported from India, followed by China with 125,600 deaths and Bangladesh with 15,000 deaths. Urgent calls are made for policy changes to prioritize air quality and reduce pollution's health impacts. The report urges global action to curb emissions and protect children's health. At least 11 irregular migrants were killed and another 50 went missing in two separate shipwreck incidents in the central Mediterranean Sea, Italian media report. The first incident occurred about 100 miles off the coast of the southern Italian province of Calabria. A boat carrying 63 irregular migrants capsized. A merchant ship rescued the boat and later transferred the 12 surviving irregular migrants, as well as the body of a woman, to shore. The second incident occurred off the Italian island of Lampedusa, where 51 irregular migrants were rescued and the bodies of 10 others from the flooded lower deck of a ship were retrieved. At least 9 people, including 7 Rohingya, were killed in landslides in Bangladesh's southeastern Cox's Bazar districts. Heavy rains have been continuing across the country for the last several days. As many as 1.2 million forcibly displaced Burmese nationals have been living in these camps since 2017, after fleeing a military genocide in Burma. There have been previous incidents of mountain landslides in Rohingya refugee camps. Announcements are being made in the area to evacuate people safely to avoid landslides. A recently released Uyghur woman has been handed another 14-year sentence by Chinese authorities. Authorities accuse Harinisa Mehmet, who was previously in prison for a decade, of attempting to undermine China by teaching Quranic studies to teenagers. The resentencing is part of a wider campaign to curb religious activities by the Chinese government among Uyghur Muslims. It claims that this is to prevent alleged extremist ideologies. Human rights activists and groups like Human Rights Watch have established that China is committing genocide against the Uyghurs. China disputes the charge. Pakistani journalists protested in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province about the murder of a journalist for Khyber TV. Khalid Afridi was also a civil society activist. He was fatally shot by unidentified gunmen. Afridi's murder has sparked outrage. Over 1,000 people attended his funeral, where journalists vowed to demand better security measures for media personnel. Shams Mohmand, head of the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Journalists Association, has announced plans for a demonstration on Friday. Observers say Afridi's death underscores the risks faced by journalists in Pakistan. The country has seen increased threats and violence against media workers despite government assurances of press freedom and protective legislation passed in 2021. That's all from our Toronto studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for the latest updates. Your support is needed now more than ever to continue our mission of providing informative, educational, and inspiring content to Muslims in North America and around the world. Donate now by visiting muslimnetwork.tv/donate. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Salam and good night.